Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Afterlife of Holly Chase. And of course, we left off on chapter 25, where I think Holly is about to think of something to save Ethan's life. So, shall we? We shall. Chapter 26. Invisible. I ran all the way to the time tunnel, praying with every step that it wasn't all over, that I wasn't too late. No matter what my fortune cookie said, there would be a time when it was too late. But when I got there, I saw on the monitors that Ethan and Blackpool was still at the mortuary. Thank God. The tunnel was open in preparation for their return journey. I ran down it as fast as I could possibly go. In the back room of the mortuary, Ethan was standing at the foot of the metal table, staring down at a body that was covered up with a sheet. His body. Blackpool was lurking a few feet behind him, letting him soak in the horror of it all. But I knew that in a minute he'd pull the sheet away so Ethan could see his own lifeless face. Then the mortuary guys would come in and put the body into the oven, and Ethan would watch himself burn. That was how the script went anyway. Still breathing hard from my run, I took off my hood. Blackpool turned to look at me. I couldn't see his face because his own hood, but he didn't seem surprised to see me there. But then it was Blackpool's job to know the future. It was impossible to rattle Blackpool's cage. Can I talk to him for a minute? I rasped. I really need to talk to him. Blackpool nodded and stepped back to give us space, which I appreciated more than I was ever able to tell him. Hi, I said to Ethan as I came up beside him. He didn't look surprised to see me either. He kept staring at the figure on the steel table. Something jerked in his throat. So, this isn't real. He smiled, relieved, because he'd been almost convinced that this horrible scene before him was possible. But now, he was sure I was going to tell him it was all a prank. I swallowed hard. The gold room was undoubtedly in full freakout mode now, seeing me here. I wasn't wearing the costume. Clearly, I was here as Holly and not Havisham, not the lamp, me. It is real, I told Ethan. It's your real future. He shook his head. It can't be. He turned to look at me. You're scamming me, right? All along, since the very first day I met you, you've been scamming me. He bent his head. I wasn't scamming you, I said. I was lying to you, but I wasn't trying to get anything like that. I just wanted to be with you. He looked up and met my eyes, his eyebrows drawn together, totally confused. I don't understand what's going on. I glanced up at one of the cameras. I'm sorry. I have to tell him. It's the only way, and you know what boss always say. There is something so strong or safe in an emergency of life as the simple truth. I turned back to Ethan. Here's the truth as simply as I can give it to you. There's a company here in New York that tries to save one person every year. One person who has gone astray in life. One person who, if they would turn themselves around, could make a big difference in the world. And this year, that one person is you. Ethan closed his eyes and kneaded his forehead like he had a massive headache. A company? What company? It's been around for almost 200 years. I work for them. It's my job to be the ghost of Christmas past, to show you the things about your past that made you into who and what you are, so that you finally see yourself clearly and decide to become something else. That's my job, but I bit my lip and lowered my head, so ashamed that I couldn't meet his eyes anymore. This year, when I saw you, I just felt drawn to you like I hadn't with any other Scrooges. I sighed. So I went to meet you, and then things just kind of spun out of control from there. That's why I always had to sneak around, why we couldn't go back to my place, why I didn't call you. This isn't going to make any sense to you, I know, but that's it. That's the truth. Tori, he started. My name isn't Victoria Scott. I made that up because I wasn't supposed to meet you face to face until tonight. My name is Holly. Holly Chase. He still looked skeptical. Wasn't Holly Chase some famous person, he asked. I almost laughed and I almost cried. After all these years walking around this city without a soul recognizing me, now he'd heard of me? I wish I could explain everything, but I can't. Not right now. There's no time. You just need to know that this whole thing tonight is real. It's not a dream or a prank or someone trying to scam you. It's real and it's your life. Trust me, I know. I was a Scrooge once too, just like you. Only I'm worse than you, obviously. Way worse. I may come in a pretty package, but I'm like rotten inside. Pretty much everything I've done for selfish reasons. I didn't believe it when this was happening to me either, by the way. The company tried to show me. They tried to tell me, but I wouldn't listen. So I missed my chance, and then I died. I glanced at the body on the steel table. Even under the sheet, I could recognize Ethan's swimmer shoulders and the shape of his face. My eyes flooded with tears. You don't have to die. Not today. All you have to do is choose a different path. Choose to be different. Choose love instead of hate or disdain or apathy or whatever. You can do it, Ethan. I know you can. Behind us, the back of the room, Blackpool pushed back his hood. He had the strangest look on his face, an expression I didn't know what to make of. Not anger, like I'd expected, not disgust or condemnation. It was more like solemn acceptance. Give her one more minute, he said softly, please. He wasn't talking to me. Then he nodded. One more minute. I had one more minute. I was shaking again, terrified about what was to come. Would it be like the first time when Blackpool put his arms around me and then I stopped being able to feel? Would it be blackness and nothingness again, or worse? Would I have to travel in chains or be caged somewhere and left to burn? Would it hurt? I had to keep my focus on Ethan. I told myself he was what was important. Tori or Holly or whoever. His hand in mine was trembling too. What's going on? What's going to happen now? I put my hand on his arm. That's up to you. Be brave, Ethan, and decide to be different, and everything will change. I promise. I could tell by his expression that he believed me, and I was so relieved my knees felt weak. Will you try? I asked. He swallowed hard and then nodded. Okay, I'll try. I don't understand it all, but I'll try. What about you? Are you going to be okay? Don't worry about me, I said. This is about you. I am so sorry I didn't see that before. I'm sorry, Ethan. Holly. Blackpool cleared his throat. He sounded more like his irritable self. Boss says I have to take him home now. Say goodbye. A tear burned its way down my cheek. I wiped it, nodded. All right. On impulse, I reached out and hugged Ethan tightly for a few seconds. Bye, I whispered against his ear. Be good. Then Blackpool led him away. They stepped through the door and disappeared. Gone, just like that. I said goodbye to him for good this time. I waited for a few minutes, crying and shivering, and then I went back to face my fate. The halls of Project Screw was full of people as I made my way to Boz's office. The first person I saw was Tox, her eyes red, clutching a tissue that she was sniffling into. It was so unlike her that it made me feel even more unsettled. Everyone was staring at me, totally silent, and I could tell some of the others had been crying too, and some of them were angry, gazing at me with accusation of their faces like I'd done something terrible. I felt like I was going to the firing squad. Boz's office door was closed, but somehow I knew he was in there waiting. I knocked. Come in. I slipped inside and shut the door behind me. Boz was sitting at his desk, his head in his hands, his dark hair sticking out between his fingers. I couldn't see his face. I thought he would tell me to sit down because that's what he always told me, but he didn't. He didn't say anything. He just sat there until I thought I would go crazy and start screaming. Finally, he straightened up and looked at me. He cleared his throat. I'm sorry, I blurted out immediately. I know. Did Ethan? He's sleeping now. We'll see what happens when he wakes up. He'll change, I said. I know he will. I know. Oh, Holly, Boss sighed. What am I going to do with you? I don't even know what to say about this. I'm speechless. My breath froze in my chest. He wasn't talking about a slap on the wrist. I'd blown everything. I compromised the project. I'd ruined his Christmas. My chin lifted. Whatever you need to do, boss, I'll take it. He ran a hand through his hair to smooth it and straighten his tie. You should go home. We'll sort this out later. I think it would be better for everyone if you wasn't around right now. But Ethan, I protested, it's not your concern anymore. My eyes filled with tears again. Who knew that a well-preserved zombie could cry so much? Leave the sweatshirt of invisibility here, he said as I moved numbly toward the door. I took off the hood and draped it over the back of the red leather armchair. I went out. The halls were empty again. Everyone had gone back to the go room to see Ethan's big finish. I'm right about him, I told myself. He changed. Then this would have been all worth it. I ran into Dave by the dressing rooms. His beard had returned to brown again. He smiled at me. That took courage, he said. I'm proud of you. You were always so nice to me. Thank you, I choked out, and then went into my dressing room before I totally lost it and started bawling my eyes out right there in the hall. It was quiet on my way out of the building. I walked the halls alone, rode the elevator to the main floor alone. The doorman didn't even glance up at me as I pushed out the rotating glass doors and onto the snow-covered street. A white Christmas. It was early morning and the streets was empty. It must be close to 6:56, I thought. Ethan was probably just now waking up in his apartment. He wasn't anywhere near Broadway. He wasn't going to be hit by a car. He was going to live. I smiled. I walked across the street in my shirt and jeans, no coat, because before I had my hoodie, but I wasn't cold. It was snowing in big, beautiful flakes. I lifted my head and looked up as it drifted down around me. I put out my hand and a flake landed in it, and then I watched it melt away. Here and then gone. Somewhere in the distance I could hear music. A Christmas carol, I thought. I strained to hear it. I closed my eyes and listened. I got a flash of a memory, my own memory. My mother, standing in a red coat on the steps of a church with a little candle stuck in a paper cup in her hand, smiling in a peaceful way as the music rolled over us. She reached and smothered her hand down the back of my hair. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. Holly! I opened my eyes. Steph was standing just outside of Project Screw's building on Broadway, panting like she'd been running. Holly, wait! Don't go yet. Maybe she knows about what happened with Ethan, I thought. Maybe she'd tell me. And I was so glad to see her, my friend, my only friend now. If she was still willing to be my friend, that I stepped off the sidewalk to cross over to her. I didn't look. I stepped right into the path of a taxi cab that was rushing down Broadway. I heard brakes, a scream. I was lying down somehow. Snowflakes was landing on my cheek. Faces moved over me. Steph's face. I thought she might have been holding my hand. Don't go anywhere, Holly, she said. Don't die. Silly, I murmured. I'm already dead. I felt dizzy the way I did sometimes when my body reset, lighter. Like I wasn't made of meat and bone anymore, but completely spirit now, like I could float away. And then everything went right. Okay, y'all. We've reached the end of chapter 26. We almost there. Come back and join me for the next chapter and let's see what happens. Until then, bye.